Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Million Dollar Media. Today I am your host, Terrell Franklin. Big shout out to Max. I'm very excited to kind of solo host my first review. Today we are talking about Marty Supreme. This is a very layered movie, sparked a little bit of controversy via its marketing and its kind of like conversation around its content. I'm very excited to just kind of unpack that and talk about things like its production quality and its cast, how it's paced in the storyline and why the storyline has caused this controversy. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. First, just the production value of this movie. I'm glad that we're kind of collectively not treating A24 like the baby sibling of the film world anymore. It is definitely a serious player, and this movie's just production, the color schemes that we get out of every scene, it feels very good to look at. It's very intentional, and it's almost no longer what you would consider indie, even though it is. A24, I believe, is a cinema superpower. Everything in this movie is just, it feels dark, almost like a stage play. It's like watching a large scale theater production. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It almost gives it a sort of different kind of life, especially in the most pivotal scenes, where like it's just kind of dark and we kind of get this scenery, but everything else like we're seeing in the background is that kind of anxiety that we get from a movie like this. To backtrack a little bit, Marty Supreme is directed by Josh Safdie, writer and director of movies like Good Time and Uncut Gems, and he's kind of known for this style of like perpetual anxiety that translates very well onto the screen. The only part of the production for me that under-delivered was like not carried out promise of Timothee Chalamet more than anything. There's a specific interview where Chalamet is talking about like the orange ping pong balls and like how he wants like this dirty orange color wash. And A24 is known for especially like its color washes from its directors and cinematographers. And I don't think I necessarily got that. Not that I was looking for it, but I was kind of aware of it, and it didn't really come through for me as well as Chalamet had described it. We also don't know too much about what was cut out or what was left in, but at the end of the day, I think it did well. It still seeped into its realism, and I don't think that missing that kind of like deepness of the orange was completely necessary for the movie. Also, I think the music is very interesting for a story to be set in the late 1940s, early 1950s, and for the music to feel almost like this Euro indie dance club. It wasn't trying too much to be a period piece as much as it was trying to be its story in and of itself. And then I'll try to get to that part later, but I do think the music and the soundtrack of the movie was very well done. I think it was a very good choice of not trying to over deliver on one way and just kind of match the tone of the film rather than match the tone of what they think the film is set in. And I also love how they made 1950s Tokyo look. Just like this is post World War II, and this nation is kind of just looking for its chance to rebuild after a big global conflict. Just the feel of it, it didn't feel like it was a like exaggerated version of Japan or a caricature of 1950s Japan post-war. It's reminiscent of like an older person telling you this is how we had to live after such an event like this. And I appreciated that production value as well. I think they did a very good job, especially with their team kind of portraying that. The cast, I think, was very strategic as well. I saw a post online talking about how strategic this cast was, about like the main character being someone gritty and will do anything to become the greatest. And then they picked Timothée Chalamet, an actress who has been out of the game for a while, who is not really as happy in her marriage as she should be. And they picked Gwyneth Paltrow, a rich billionaire who is kind of like just straight to the point, harsh. And they picked Kevin O'Leary, which we'll get to Kevin O'Leary because I think he did a great job, almost like unrecognizably great job on his role. But just these roles that they were casted in, it feels like they were being intentional with this entire movie the whole time. Even the out of pocket casting of Tyler the Creator and Kevin O'Leary did just a really good job of just keeping you immersed in this world. I think Tyler's character Wally was just really good, especially kind of like being partner in crime with Marty. And then Kevin O'Leary as Milton Rockwell was just an amazing performance in my opinion. You really never know who can act at that level. And I think Milton Rockwell was like for real character for me, to where like I had to keep reminding myself, like, this is the dude off of Shark Tank. So I was in love with that part of the process. I also loved that every character in the story could portray themselves as being beyond flawed. My favorite types of stories are like the characters who don't really push you into the like pick a side on the moral high ground. It instead kind of like gives you the like feelings, just like, man, like all of you can make better decisions right in this moment, and then we could avoid a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. And that's kind of, the style of the movie. And I think the casting and just the delivery of this cast was exceptional. Honestly, this is a very, very high bid in my opinion for a casting award. And we also saw, as of recording this, Chalamet got a Critics' Choice Awards Best Actor. So this was a very good choice for this movie. I don't think I would cast it any other way. The pacing of the story, I also have no complaints. I think it was curated in a way that it was supposed to. It's a classic tale of majorly flawed protagonist taking L after L after L. And he keeps ruining his own life, his own relationships, and his own reputation, chasing a dream that might not necessarily be the right thing for him at the moment. And it's like the tale itself immediately lets you know that like Marty Mauser is not the greatest person. He's not your run-of-the-mill protagonist. He's not the cookie cutter, like the average Joe that you want to relate to. You know that Marty is not the greatest protagonist, but we get to these sequences of the tennis table matches. I literally was sitting in the theater, and as these matches are going, I can see like the people in the seats next to me like tensing up and leaning forward as like the pacing of the match is going back and forth. I have absolutely no complaints with the pacing. It also did a really good job for a 2.5-hour movie to keep me engaged from second one to hour 2.5 is impressive nowadays. Now that we are done with the kind of spoiler-free, semi-spoiler-free moments in the movie, this is just spoiler warning right here. I will be talking about the storyline, and then I'll kind of go into a slight tangent about the conversation around Marty Supreme, like why people are kind of like at odds about something, or in my opinion of why people are at odds about the messaging of the movie, and then just give my final 2 cents of it. So if you don't want to be spoiled, I would say stop here, but I am going to get into the storyline of Marty Supreme. So the film's logline is Marty Mauser, a young man with a dream no one respects, goes to hell and back in pursuit of greatness. And in concept, that is very like, oh, like I've seen a movie like this before. I felt like, and some people do feel like they've seen a movie like this before. I was talking to someone who said it's Whiplash for ping pong, which is a very comedic way of like kind of showing that like somebody in pursuit of greatness is willing to go through the worst of the worst in order to reach their goal. I think there was a campaign slogan somewhere floating around about like dream big. And so the marketing is like seemed to push of like somebody's fighting for their dream and will do whatever it takes to get the job done. And while that's true, it's not necessarily as accurate as the movie was. What really happens is like we kind of get to a beginning part where Marty Mauser kind of leaves his job to go to an international table tennis tournament, and then he leaves his lover pregnant, played by Odessa Isayan. I think that's how you say her last name. She plays Rachel Mitzler. He leaves Rachel pregnant with his baby as he goes and does this tournament. He is a con man as well. He's kind of like, by lying, he shouldn't even get into these conversations. He's sitting at tables with people and reporters who would have nothing else to do with him if he didn't just run his mouth the right way, or the wrong way, I should say. He kind of starts his way into talking to Gwyneth Paltrow's character Kay Stone, who is a retired actress, and kind of gets her attention to get support for his infamous run. He wants to bring table tennis to the United States and make that a big epicenter of his sport. He gets to the finals of his tournament and he plays against the Japanese representative for table tennis, but he ends up losing in the tournament. But he tries to go back by any means necessary. But when he returns home, he gets into trouble for leaving his job that is run by his uncle, for not taking care of his mother, for leaving his pregnant lover back with a man that she had cheated on to get with him. And then there's kind of this subplot of Kevin O'Leary and Gwyneth Paltrow, just him individually conning them both so that he can make his way back to Tokyo, which the next tournament is going to happen. His obsession starts making him like short on money. He starts like conning even his own people. And it gets to a point where he is about to lose his dignity. He's having such a terrible time with trying to get back. He's offended Rockwell beyond a point because of his conning and antics and just being so aggressive with his goal that he sneaks into a party, like a celebration party for K Stone. And Mr. Rockwell is in there and he's like, I'll do anything to get this chance back. Just let me back, please. And Rockwell tells him to go to his office and grab a paddle, to drop his pants, and then Rockwell spanks him with the paddle, thus like kind of bringing him to the point of no return of like he is literally given up everything for his goal of getting back to Tokyo. Mind you, he is not even in this Tokyo tournament because he's been banned because he's been conning so many people and he's getting caught. He then gets to Tokyo, but under Rockwell's deal, Rockwell has now a deal with Tokyo. It's a good business deal. And Marty goes there and it's supposed to almost be like a circus act. There's this kind of subplot of like Marty having to go as like a sideshow for the Harlem Globetrotters. So he's kind of like reinvesting those skills for Rockwell and losing a kind of fixed match for the Tokyo champion. And he loses on purpose and, you know, like Tokyo celebrating. And then he kind of gets to this moment. He's like, no, like I got here so I could beat this dude. I can't lose to him. And so he's yelling and he's having kind of like this hissy fit in front of like hundreds of people. And finally, his opponent's just like, fine, we'll play a real match. Like this is sudden death. And it's a nothing match at the end of the day. But this is like Marty's obsession and goal has diverged so low that he's like, as long as I can beat him, I can do it. And so then he wins this nothing match. And he just kind of finally has his moment where he just kind of falls to the ground. And like the only people who are celebrating this win with him and not even with him are US soldiers who are in the audience watching this event. And like Rockwell is not like kind of sees it like, why did he want this goal so bad? And then everybody else is in the crowd and you can just see the disappointment, like, oh my goodness, like he beat our champion in front of everybody. This was supposed to be a great fun event. And then we get to this ending. And this is the super spoiler warning because I was heavily disappointed by this ending where Marty comes back to the United States and he sees Rachel. Rachel has had his baby. There's also a subplot to where she has to be rushed to the hospital where she is injured and she's still pregnant with his baby. And he leaves her at the hospital and doesn't say I love you back to her at all. And doesn't say I love you to her until he comes up and she's resting on bed rest. And then goes to the kind of like nursery and sees his child. And then there's just kind of like this emotional moment where he's just crying and it's like, this is my son. How do I say? It's too positive and dramatic of a character change, in my opinion, for what Marty has sacrificed and people that he's literally like killed on accident for this and people that he's put in terrible positions in order to get his goal of winning a nothing game. And now he's finally happy he has a son and has this kind of like whole one-to-one conversation with Rachel about how you're slowing me down. I can't even have that kid. Even if it was mine, you're just trying to put this baby on me. She's been trying to do this to me since we were 8. Like, whoa, dude. Like you just have a complete character change at this point. But outside of that ending, for me, I enjoyed the movie for its own reasons, but there is controversy about the movie. And I think there are two schools of thought with the same fundamental misunderstanding of what the message of the movie is. The first flawed school of thought is the guy who's like, Marty is literally me. I feel like this kind of person would think that the main character of Taxi Driver and Whiplash is the guy that you should be rooting for. I do not think that any of these movies are saying that you should feel like you need to be like Marty. As a matter of fact, the beginning sequence of the movie shows you why you should not trust this man. He is a con man. He cons his coworker. He cons his uncle. He cons his lover just so he can go and play table tennis. We are given every single reason not to believe that he is a good guy. And if you're like, he's literally me, it's a moral misunderstanding of the film. There's a pivotal scene where Odessa and Timothy are arguing, like everything that's going on, like they've been conning each other the whole time, but everything that's going on and Marty being like the whole "you're holding me back" situation when he has someone in his corner the whole time, even when Rachel's like, take me with you, like she wanted to be his support system the whole movie and was not given that opportunity. And so this kind of like you need to shed off everything in order to reach your goals is not what the movie is telling you to do. The second flawed school of thought for me is that the message is the same thing. It's that, oh, this is telling men to be like Marty. It's not doing that. Once again, we have every reason not to believe this. Marty ruins his relationships with everyone. There are multiple chances, even when there's a little kind of like both funny and stressful side plot of like this hotel room thing. This dog needs to go to the vet because the bathtub fell on top of the dog taking a bath in the hotel, and then they lose the dog and somebody kidnaps the dog. They could have gone back and told Ezra. They could have told him, like, it's in New Jersey, somebody stole your dog. And they could have missed a lot more stress, but they were so used to lying and doing the wrong thing the wrong way that it made the situations worse for them. It's not showing you that you need to completely throw everything away and be like Marty. It's showing you that Marty is just a flawed character. The story is more allegorical. Though the story is based on a real man, it's still a big allegory for the dangers of obsession, dangers of dreaming too big. Not saying that you shouldn't dream big, but obsession does not necessarily equal success. And Marty's original goal was to make table tennis a big event in the United States. He did not reach that goal. His ultimate goal was to win this world tournament. He did not make that goal. He failed ultimately at the end. So this kind of controversy is, I think, well needed, especially for the dialogue around the film. I think it's, once again, good marketing for the film regardless, but this film does kind of have its back and forth that I think comes from the same fundamental misunderstanding of like, oh, it's telling you to be like Marty. It is not telling you to be like Marty, I don't believe. But there is some more valid criticism, I believe. One, this especially came from a like post-movie conversation I had about it with my girlfriend. We're both very intrigued by the movie, like straight through, like 2.5 hours of watching it. And she's just like, everybody sucks here. I'm like, yeah, I love that everybody sucks here. She's like, but the portrayal of women is so bad. I'm like, but everybody sucks here. And I think one of the things is that it's likely reflective of Marty's perspective. And her similar criticism is just like somebody who doesn't have the media literacy of knowing that like you're not supposed to be like Marty. It just kind of reinforces a certain idea about like these women as like more plot devices than about like characters in the story. And while I kind of subscribe that this being a little more allegorical than it is about like a moral thing, I do see that like most of the women in conjunction with Marty are either used for like sex, which is Kay Stone, and like burden, which is Rachel, and just kind of like a little bit of just like anti-motherhood a little bit when talking about Fran Drescher's character who plays Marty's mother. I think it's more being reflective of Marty's view and perspective because he is our main character. But I do think it is a valid criticism and just it's not something that should be overlooked, especially with somebody who might miss the messaging of the movie. Another criticism is that there is no good character. And Dion, who was played by Luke Manley, who is now notorious for talking about Trae Young.
Trae Young looks like my dad's dick! I never saw my dad's dick! He still looks like shit!
A big Knicks fan, as Timothee Chalamet is. He's kind of like the best moral character we've got. And he's kind of like pushed off to the side a little bit because he's 30 years old living with his rich dad. Like he's still, like we have been given a reason in this movie to dislike him, but he still isn't the good Boy Scout character that a lot of people were kind of missing. Just because the movie has bad people and the protagonist is a bad person doesn't mean the movie is bad. I actually think that if done well, the movie is actually doing a great job of showing how imperfect people are. I think we kind of over-romanticize the idea of how people should be. And it is honestly just highlighting really, really nice flaws in people that kind of make this stress story work. There's also a criticism of like, we shouldn't even be in the position to root for Marty at all. I don't necessarily call that a moot point, but again, the movie does give us a reason why Marty is not the person that we agree with. But then we get to tournament scenes and the table tennis scenes, and for some reason, why are we on the edge of our seats like win this match of table tennis? And I think the cinematography and the direction has a lot to do with that. we are kind of like in this conflicting battle of not liking Marty, but seeing like a sports scene. And like for people who've seen like those sequences in movies, like we know that like as this is going, we kind of like naturally tend towards the person we're more familiar with, and we want him to win this table tennis match. These kind of like intense, palm sweaty type matches. Why do we need him to win? Is it because like we're so used to seeing the person we're most familiar with win? Or do we think that he's going to stop once he wins? Like, is he going to stop screwing over people when he wins this? My opinion of like why these scenes are so powerful to me is that we are being conned at the moment. But we are following a con man, and we see the stuff that he's doing in the background. But all of a sudden, when you want him to win this tournament, we have been conned into pushing him into this tournament, into supporting him into this tournament. And I think that is one of the highest level things that Safdie has done, that Chalamet has done, that just everybody on this film has done in order to make this movie kind of pop. One of the best criticisms for me, though, is the ending. I kind of hated the ending. Marty has to come back to all the damage that he did back home, but all of a sudden his obsession is ended. And I understand his obsession is ended because he won his nothing match, but he lost his dignity and his allies and his reputation, and he doesn't have anything to show for it. Like, he's committed crimes that we don't see at least a little repercussion. Rachel takes him back with open arms, maybe because she doesn't want to raise the child by herself, but still, Marty is not necessarily saying that like, oh, like I hate happy endings, but does Marty deserve a happy ending? And I believe that is the best criticism for this movie, in my opinion. But overall, this movie for me is a major thumbs up. I 100% loved like just being a part of this journey up until the end. There's controversy around it, but it's a plus for its marketing and for its relevance. It is very, very, very good for this 2025 Oscar season. It is once again another hard-hitting movie, and it's just adding to like a list of like just a thought provoker. And I'll say it again, it is kind of in the likes of a whiplash of like throwing everything away for a goal, that the goal is ultimately changed because you've been so obsessed in tunnel vision that you didn't even know that the marker of the goal has moved for you. And ultimately it's showing the dangers of obsessions and then like having too big of a dream that it costs you everything around you. So yeah, that was my review on Marty Supreme. I know it was all over the place. Very much enjoyed this movie. This was $1 Million Media with me, Terrell Franklin. Once again, shout out for Max. I very much enjoyed this process and reviewing this movie, and would love to dive much deeper into this because there are so many layers to this movie. So, but hope you guys have a good day. Thanks. See ya.